Welcome, everybody, back to the Transformation Leaders Podcast. I'm Sean Ennis, here with my partner in crime, David Soden. And today we wanted to scratch that surface of everything that you've been hearing in the news, everything that you've been hearing in the industry about, agentic AI, about vibe programming, and understanding how these new technologies, these new concepts are butting into your traditional digital engineering plays. There are advantages, there are disadvantages, but what we want to do is just open that door so that you all feel comfortable taking that first step, because we believe, and we have talked about repeatedly on this podcast, on how these concepts of technology are being employed in Fortune 500 companies today. This is not an aberration. There is real embrace of these kind of concepts. So making sure that you understand at a high level, and you can compare these and understand where they apply in your business, in your role, in your team. So today, David has spent some heavy lifting, creating some basic primers so that we can kind of explain, compare, and contrast these technologies for you today. David, thank you so much for putting this together. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. And do me a favor and help me keep the pace of this, because I'm going to get dry mouth probably by the end. We're going to push this, I'm guessing, close to the hour, but if we can finish a little early, that's fine too. Obviously, keep an eye on the comments and questions. If anything comes in, let us know. And without any further ado, let me add to the stage this. And Sean, if we get any comments about this being too small as an option, I can hide our faces and we can go full screen on this one. But I think for now, this one might suffice. So I'm going to start off, go one step back so that we can go one step forward, which is to this cursor. Now, cursor is, in fact, a copy of Visual Studio Code. It is what programmers have used to write traditional code for, well, I don't know, a decade at least. And so at the start of, my career was even just a full big parent of this one, which was simply just Visual Studio, no Visual Studio Code, which is like the little light brother, but it's grown in leaps and bounds since. And now we've got this vibe coding. So cursor is just a break off of this with an AI component. Now, to be fair and not to cause confusion, because there's so much to talk about on this podcast today, inside of Visual Studio Code for free, that little icon up next to the search bar is the Copilot. And Copilot is your assistant that allows you to do some vibe programming. It's free. There is a paid version of it, just like everything else. The cursor version that you're going to see me use today is also the free plan. So hopefully we won't push it beyond my free plan limits, and it'll still go and be capable and do what we need it to do. But this is a live show. Anything and everything can go wrong, but I want it to happen that way because I want you to see the challenges, the good, the bad, the ugly, the truth. There's a lot of good in it, but there's some stickiness to this too. And so you just got to work through any of these challenges. So anybody that's been in IT for more than 5 years, congratulations. You know what it's like. You've encountered, I don't know how many problems and pushed through it. And this is no different than anything else. So let's start with the step backwards. Let's go to low code or no code. In this case, this is actually no code. And this is N8N. It is a workflow program that allows you to do traditional workflows like what you see here. But in addition to that, it allows us to create APIs. Now, I'm creating this API in a really ridiculous way. I have a database. Let me show you the backend SQL Server. And if you're wondering why I'm not using SQL Server Management Studio, it's because when I use Navicat, I connect to all of these different backend databases. And I like this because it's one user interface for me to use with pretty much just about everything I need to connect to. So if you're a diehard SQL fan, which I am, this is one case where I do break away from that. Anyway, we got this simple lab database. The tables are very simple. We have 50 rows in each with some synthetic data. I'll open up the customers table. It's just synthetic garbage that we created actually with AI. Okay. So, but the point is, we're going to show and illustrate a story here. And I want to go back to showing you the database and the table. So we have customers, inventory, orders, and vendors. The API is only specifically talking about customers, but I also want to show you something else. I don't know if you saw that. I switched screens here, but that screen is now, this is now a chatbot. We're still using N8N, but that's the power of low code, no code. There's all this agent, all this agentic stuff. Now there's still traditional coded tools. So you see this AI tools agent, which is also a chatbot. There's no AI over here. But the point or the key here is that traditional code like Crew AI and other things allow you to use these open source libraries to scrape websites, to do all of the stuff that you can do here. So if you're an absolute, this is a negative word, but an absolute traditional code elitist and you hate low code or no code products, then there are still libraries out there to help you get the accelerated benefits. It's still coding, but now with vibe coding, we can kind of bring all of these different worlds together, and we're going to kind of show a little bit of that today. All right.
David, I'd love to make a point here and give you a breath.
Yeah, thank you.
So one of the things that I really want to make the emphasis on is the technology is independent from this. So, we're showing Cursor, there's 10 of those. We're showing N8N, there's 10 of those, right? We're showing Visual Studio, there's 10 of those. I don't want people to get hung up on the specifics, because just as you were saying, and you made a great point on this, all of us IT professionals understand vendors come and go, different tools come and go, but Agile's the same, right? And so if you understand Agile as a concept, and that is constantly being improving, but vibe programming, low code, no code, and using IDEs for traditional programming, these are concepts that we believe are just going to continue. I mean, no code, low code was like our first podcast. So, this has been around for years and years and years. And we think vibe programming is going to be around for years and years and years. The tools are going to change. The techniques are going to change. Our expertise in them are going to change. There's plenty of reasons to stick with traditional development. There's plenty of reasons to look at no code. There's plenty of reasons to look at vibe. Those reasons are your reasons. We're just going to give you examples here today.
We're planting a bunch of seeds. It's up to you to water them, fertilize them, and have them grow to however you want. And also, as an aside or a quick plug, you can find both Sean and I on LinkedIn. So if you have questions about the implementation, the specifics, and there's lots of specifics, I'm sure you probably will have a lot of questions. Reach out to us. We're more than happy to, jump on a calendar slot with you and have a one-on-one or talk to you and your team about these types of techniques and what you might be able to do as either a consultant or having us come and help you do whatever it is that you're looking to do. So to get into like some of the specifics here, I have created, and I'm going to go back and forth from technical, and Sean is going to help pull me back out, because we want to make sure that the leadership watching these presentation also has something to take away from. You'll be lost in some of the technicals, and that's okay, but we're going to go deep and come back out and try to bring this all back together for everybody. So if I look at this Postman collection, if you're not familiar with Postman, it is a development tool that at least I use it as a development tool. There's lots of use cases for it, but to oversimplify, what most developers use it for is when you develop something, you use it for testing. Okay. So for example, this API, I'm going to hover over this thing that says base URL. This is just a token placeholder or a variable. And the actual value, as you can see from the hover item that says https auto.cnxlab, blah, blah, blah. Right. So if you're trying to figure out why this works the way it is, don't worry. There's actually a full URL behind it. We're not giving it any data. We're just asking the API, hey, give me all of your customers. And that's the name, get all customers, right? And that goes back to what we said here, standard naming conventions. I specifically, if I dig into this node, we can see the URL, we can see that the method. This is where we can control the naming and the path. This is where we have some authentication, which is a JSON web token. Irrelevant for right now. Just know that this port is secured. It is locked up. What we're going to create later is not secure. We're going to use localhost, and we're going to take it as far as we can to make it move forward without adding too much complexity. But I want to show you that when I click this magical send button, that in theory, even if you don't understand any of the code or what it does, it's basically you have a mouth and an ear. This is the mouth. It talks. It asks questions. It does a lot of the initiation. The API is the ear. It's always listening for somebody talking, and then it responds with some sort of information. And that's what these blocks here are on the back end, that it provides whatever information. And we can see that down here when we do that. Now, when we use traditional tools like, database query tools, and we ask it to get all, it's the same thing programmatically. It's just displayed in a different way. And now if you think of a web page or a website that just has a button that says, show me all my customers, and then you have a filter and a search within that user interface, these are the same things, but this API behind the scenes is what drives all of that magic to happen. Okay, so we have these other items here where we can add a customer. Now, this is a little bit different where we have to give it an ID and some data and whatever, and I can post it and it'll wind up showing there. So we had 50 something records. We'll just do Blake Capital. We'll click that in there. And then the response is, I got a violation because it's trying to put in the key of 4. Let's just do 100 to make it work. And now we've got it successfully there. It's just looking, there's keys that just says it's a unique value, and I already had a value that matched. So it yelled at me, which is good by design. But as a programmer, you need to account for these things and deal with it. In any event, this is your traditional old school API, this type of stuff here. And so this is the way that it works. Now, the other thing about the low code tool is it's interesting, that is kind of sort of off topic a little bit, but I want to plant the seed as your farmer planting your field here. But again, it's your field. You need to take care of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation with this AI. And I'm going to click in here to grab this URL, and I'm going to pop it over here. And this is the interface, the chat interface that drives what you're seeing here. This workflow. This is real. And I am going to do something that I think will help illustrate this. I'm going to move this window over here and this window over there. And let's try to bring this all together. All right, so hopefully everything is on screen, and I'm going to hide Sean in my space only because my screen is so small for a minute. I'm going to try to go full screen so you guys can see what's going on. All right, and so here's our demo. Now what's happening here is it's connected to all of the information. So you saw what I did in the database application. You saw what I did in the Postman thing where I ran the GET request. But now let me just use natural language like a human would speak and say, tell me, show me all. So I just said, show me all the customers. And now let's see what's happening. Now, if you keep an eye over here, you may see, oh, actually, I'm not using the chat interface. Let me come over here to the executions. Here we go. So we can see that it's running. It's going through and doing whatever. And so it will give us a visualization of what had happened after it's done its magic here. So this hasn't normally taken this long, but the demo gods are here to, stick a monkey wrench in whatever's going on. All right, here we go. So a little bit longer than usual. My machine is hosting many things all at the same time, including this video. So it's probably why it's choking. But in any event, I now have a list of customers in a very good formatted, human readable way. And I'm going to pick out Infinity Group, and I'm going to say, how many orders does Infinity Group have? If I could type. So now this is a little bit more specific, and we can see another execution is up here queued and running. And we can see while that's running, I can at least, I wish I could hide this, but it's a little bit hard to show. You can see here that the request came in through the chat, the agent, and this is what we're talking about, Agentic AI. Agentic AI is essentially telling us what's going on behind the scenes with regards to all of the tools that it has. And you can see I got a lot of tools in the toolbox. I can get the customers, the inventory, the orders, and things of that nature. And so the agentic part is the orchestrator or the manager, the supervisor, and his job is to figure out what tools to use. And this is the part that is not always deterministic. It doesn't always follow A, B, C, and D. We give it some intelligence, a brain, we give it a tool. It's like hiring an intern. And when you hire that intern, you say, here's all your tools at your disposal. Here's the outcome we expect you to do, but I'm not going to give you do this, do that, do this. Like, for example, if your role is customer service, you're going to monitor email, you're going to answer phone calls, and occasionally you'll get a handwritten letter, and you may have to respond to that. And that's all I'm going to tell you, other than here's some examples of how our tone, how we do what we do here. It's important to always do whatever, whatever, whatever. And it's the same thing with AI. You give those the same instructions. So apparently I picked a company, because if you notice down here, Infinity Group has 0 orders. I'm just going to say, and Fusion, what about, and I'll pop in Fusion Technologies. We'll see if they've got any orders. Apparently they don't have any orders either. How about, let's try this. And it has the context of it. I mean, either I'm not getting any orders or something happened in my database. So let's see if it has 50 orders have been placed. Okay, who are the customers? So we'll use the AI to interrogate the database. So there's 50 orders that's been placed, but I want to know who the customers are. And so now we're going through the back end of this. And every time that I run through this, you can see the tools in the toolbox. This one, it's selected orders. This one, it's going to, again, select orders. The original one was looking up, look, this one hit every one of them. It went and tried to figure out all of it. So now it's dumped a whole bunch of, here's a list of the customers. No, I didn't want to know. Okay. Who are the customers that place the orders? Okay. And so now hopefully it will come back, and essentially it should be doing some joins of looking at the orders and looking at the customer ID, and then having to go back around. And it looks like these customers have placed orders. Have any customers placed more than one order? And so the point here is that I'm not going to go into too many. Normally I would follow up and interrogate it with saying, all right, now give me how many orders they've placed and blah, 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 blah. The point is that generative AI can use these tools. This is just SQL Server. Imagine whatever database you have behind the scenes and having it connect to the key tables. And you may provide examples of SQLs that you might need to do that's special for your use case and environment. But the point is, all of this is a low code, no code way of dealing with a lot of the stuff behind the scene. So I'm going to close this one down. And now let's get into the star of the show, which is what you came here to see. And this is vibe programming.
So hold on. I want to be clear, everyone. What you saw was an agentic experience, right? But the use case that he was showing is very much a conversational AI or conversational analytics, being able to interrogate a data set. So a lot of people get very up in arms when it comes down to what defines agentic, what defines conversational. But the point that we're trying to make with this technology is that if you go no code, this is the level of effort you should experience. And that level of effort is corresponded to your level of skill set. The skill set we just showed is really point and click and being educated on the platform, right? And now we're really doing the next step into complex skill sets and going into Cursor, which is more programming, right? One step closer, one step out of anybody can do it, and one step more into you need to understand code to be able to do this. Now, we'll see the levels of complexity, but again, go ahead and take it back, David.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Sean. So what you're seeing here is not much at all. I have a prompt that is not in plain English. It's called Markdown, and it's got a little bit of weird coding formatting. You'll see some symbolism here, but mostly it's plain English, and that's really all Markdown is. It's just a way of formatting something to look pretty. The other thing that we can do here is I want to show you what we're doing. So I initially started off, and this is key. If you get nothing out of this next part that we're showing here, just this is your key takeaway. Make sure that when you're using Agentic AI vibe programming tools, that you have control over it. A lot of people that I talk to, a lot of people that I see online, on YouTube, giving videos or whatever, some do a good job, some maybe not so much of a good job. I'm sure there's people that know way, 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 way more than me and are saying the same thing for me too, right? But we're all at different levels. And that's why we have different classifications for development. There's junior, senior, mid, blah, 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 so on and so forth. The key here is that now we've got this new AI working aside with regular traditional developers. And so the technique that I'm going to show you here allows you to maintain as much control as possible. Sean made mention that we're showing Cursor today. There's also Windsurf. There's Lovable, which is, you don't even really get a developer interface per se, but it's still vibe programming. It's more, I guess it's probably a stage between vibe programming and this traditional sense, but that's vibe, right? That's not even traditional anymore. And then you've got these low code, no code tools. And Lovable is kind of between what I just showed previously and what I'm showing now. It's like that middle step. So if this is too much for you, check out Bolt, check out, I just said it, I forgot. Check out Lovable. Those are like the really popular main ones that's out there. But even with those tools, this technique that I'm about to show you really, really will help you with that. All right, so I started off with this prompt. I just wrote it in plain English. I used this Notepad++. You could use Notepad, whatever. And you write it in plain English like this. And then what I did is I jumped out to Poe. You've seen me do this a million times, right? I go out here to Poe, and I popped in to this chat interface what I just wrote here. And I explained before I paste this in, I said, I'm using Cursor to do vibe programming. Here's my initial prompt. And I want you to help me make it better because I want to make sure that I have as much control over the experience that I can. And I need your help writing me a prompt for vibe coding or vibe programming to make sure that that AI doesn't hallucinate. And so it was able to do that, and it created this file for me. And then I went ahead and I modified that because, again, remember the 80-20 rule, right? 80% AI is going to do the work. Your job is right around the 20%. It's going to vary based on task, based on what you do. It could be 60-40. It could be 100%, anywhere in between. But the point is, AI is going to share the load with you. And if you learn these techniques, and that's what vibe programming is, it's a radically different way on how to approach coding and programming. And so now I have this prompt that says, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do this program. Ultimately, all I want to do is convert what I had already done in N8N with that backend API. And I showed you Postman. online. I'm going to go back to Postman so you can see that. Okay, you saw this here. And one of the things that you have with this API is this option to click here and then click more, and I can go to export. What it does is it exports this collection. A collection is just a bucket that holds my different API testing actions that you see here. And its output is this file right here. I didn't have to write this. This is just an export, but I'm using this in my prompt that says, hey, listen, I need to create another application, an API, and I want to do it in a traditional sense. I don't want to do low code, no code. And I'm giving you the translation. That's not necessarily how this reads here, but I'm showing you how I got here. I wrote this in plain English. It translated here, and I'm still going through the steps. We're not creating anything yet. What I'm telling is that I want you to create me a plan on how you would do this. And the purpose of this is that I want to make sure that I have full control. Now, if we look over here, I'm saying, I want you to help me not write anything. Because if you look down here, the note, we are not building the API now. We're only creating the specified files, which are these, the README, the planning, and the task. And what this is going to do, it's going to let me see like a window into how the AI thinks. So I know what it's going to do, what it's going to produce, what it might do, rather than have a bunch of files get created. And then I have to go and reverse engineer what the hell it created to figure out what's broken and where do I go to even fix it. Yes, I could use AI to say what's broken and what's going to fix it, which you're going to see me do. But the key here is you want to have as much control. Now, this is my personal preference. This is my personal opinion. Everybody that's a developer is going to have their own personal opinion. One of the reasons I like Cursor over, say, another tool like Windsurf. Windsurf is good if you have no programming experience at all, but you're coming from that low-code world and then you're trying to jump into vibe programming. It's helpful, as AI is, right? It always tries to give you everything that it can. It fills in the blanks. It helps to hallucinate. Sometimes that's good. Other times it's catastrophic, especially when it comes to code, because now we're talking about something going off the rails at scale. And so this is why I like Cursor, because up here in the prompt, this is the other part of the magic and this is why I like Cursor over something else. You see this little @ symbol? It says prompt MD. I'm going to close this down. I'm going to make sure that I recycle the chat here, or let me just get rid of this. So let's start here. This is a drop down that says, what mode do you want AI to take into effect? Like, how are you going to interact with AI? And you have agent and ask. Those are the only two I use. There is manual, but that needs more configuration, and that's beyond the scope of what we want to show you today. Just know that agent is when you are building the application, or when you're making or telling it to do something with regards to files. The ask turns it into like the chat GPT experience. What you saw me do earlier, asking and interrogating the database with a chat user interface, that's what ask does. It's not going to build anything. It just allows you to have a conversation. It's a consultant. You're going to bounce ideas off of it at this point. But when you want it to do stuff, you got to throw it into agent mode. The other thing I need you to understand is that right now, this says auto, and this is a bad thing. And the reason it's a bad thing is because, again, AI tries to help, it tries to be helpful, it tries to have you do everything it needs to do. But if you say auto, because I'm also on the free plan, it's going to pick the cheapest, most available, most capable AI to do whatever I'm asking it to do. Now, sometimes auto might be good, but I can go into the back end of the settings and I can go into the models and I can turn these on and off. So I can have some level of control which models I want it to use in the auto. But ideally, if you're going to use auto, my tip or suggestion to you is only pick the models that you know produce good output. If you don't have any experience with it, then I would suggest sticking with the following. Stick with Claude 3.5. 3.7 is good too. There's pros and cons to each. I'm not going to get into this. Gemini 2.5 Pro is very, very good. honestly, I'd stay away from 4.0 and Mini. They're okay. They're good for like maybe simple things or tasks, but this time I'm asking it to write a full app. So maybe stay away from them for right now. They're okay with programming, coding, but not that much. Again, this is my experience. DeepSeek, I've had varying results with that. And Cursor Fast, honestly, I don't even know what that one is. I have never really directly tried to use it. But if you stick with Claude, that's like the standard. And the other reason I said Gemini is because Gemini, if you've not been watching the news, and I don't want to go 3 steps back to go 1 step forward because we covered this in previous podcasts, but context is king. Context means the window or how much information can I store in my head or in my memory before I start forgetting things or dumping things out. When you're talking to AI, it will remember the beginning, it will remember the end, and if it runs out of context and it needs to start flushing the cache or the buffer or the memory, it is going to clear out the stuff in the middle. That's a bad thing. So if I've got 1 million files on the left side, that's the context because that's the application, and I needed to understand holistically what I've got, what I'm dealing with, what I'm doing. If I have a small context window, this is catastrophic. So if you're an enterprise and you have a really complicated app, I wouldn't even use Claude. I jump right over to Gemini Pro. The context window is 2 million. There's been some llama drama, as they call it, just in the last week or two. This is now giving you a 10 million context window, which is even larger than Gemini. But they did some funny stuff with it and trained it to just pass. So the jury's still out at the moment about Llama 4 and how they might have rigged it to do certain things. So use it at your own risk.
That was a big talking point over the weekend for some people who are following this day to day. But here's my philosophy on models. You can pick whatever you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. There are differences. There may be significant differences, an order of magnitude, but you're not going to see 90% difference. You're in single digit of difference. Some things may be a little faster. Some things may be a little more accurate. My perspective is accuracy is always king. But what you'll find 9 times out of 10, if you're getting a bad result, it isn't the model, it's the prompt. Yeah. And if it's not the model or the prompt, it's probably your context. So I would say majority of times in these situations, context is king, as David just said. That is the most important thing. If you're putting garbage code in there, it's assuming you want garbage code out. Number 2, your prompt. If you're using very vague language, if you're using misspellings, these things do add up eventually. So, again, as my father taught me, measure twice, cut once. You can't get your tokens back. The last issue that I would recommend is, spend a little due diligence on models. There's a list. Go to the leaderboard. On Hugging Face, and read the comments. Think of yourself that this is Amazon, right? I look at the feedback of the comments before I buy something I haven't bought before to get a good idea.
So another tool that I use
if in doubt, use Perplexity.
Yeah, and the reason I'm showing Perplexity over Poe, which is what my default is Poe is great as an AI, a conversationalist, a consultant. But if you want to do research, Perplexity has this weird engine in that they are tied into e-commerce, so they try to reflect what's out there, but they're also great at research. And so if you need, and I'm using the free plan, and so if you need to ask questions like this that basically require research in nature, I use Perplexity for, I don't know what just happened. I use Perplexity for that reason, because it will go out there and see already it came up with Gemini and here's Claude. Right, these are the top ones. And this pretty much just goes along with what I was just saying and telling you. And then here's the top IDEs. It's selling at Cursor. I mentioned Windsurf earlier. And again, Cursor over Windsurf for the reasons that I mentioned. Here you got GitHub Copilot Studio and so on and so forth. So if you're doing research, go to Perplexity over Poe or ChatGPT or whatever. They have access to the internet, but these models on Perplexity that behind the scenes are really honed in and trained for research. All right, so back to our vibe nature thing here. We've got, I showed you how to get from point A to point B. We talked about the picking of the model. Now, I'm on the free plan and I'm trying to give a demo, and I'm not too worried about using this in production. So I want it to go off mostly without a hitch. I'm going to do what I told you not to do, and I'm going to use auto just so that I can make sure that I don't gobble up too many tokens, and it can kind of hopefully figure out how to get me from point A to point B. But you can read through this. My goal here is I'm going to have it to do whatever. And the other reason I like Cursor, and this is how you get the fine-grained control. I'm going to say, let's use the, and I'm going to mention add, and I'm going to see we got files and folders. I'm going to hit enter because I'm already selected on files and folders. And I'm going to show prompt MD. And now I'm going to get out of here so I can finish typing. So use the I'm mentioning the file. So, and I'm saying, and I'm going to mention this other file, which is the JSON, which is for the API to make the preparations, and we'll just leave it like that. Okay. And now it's reading this prompt. So I gave it a kind of a starter primer prompt, but the majority of the meat and the potatoes is in this prompt. And also not only in that prompt, it's in that Postman collection. So it knows what I'm trying to do. It has an example from which to use. I'm giving it specific information on how to connect to my local SQL server. Yeah, my tongue's getting tied. And I can also tell it when you run this in your local host, I want you to use this particular port number because by default, I know Fast API is going to use a specific port. I'm already using that port for something else. So I changed that around. And now we can see the output. It's done, but we can see a bunch of stuff going on here. And it's created this planning doc, and you can see it's got this weird color to it. And it's weird because this is the proposed document. I can go in and override this now. At this point, I have a README file that goes here, and I have a task. So it's done all the planning. Now, why did I do this? Control. You want to know what's going to happen before you do it. If something's going to go wrong, and this is where there's two types of Vibe programmers. There are Vibe programmers like myself that come from the scripting. Maybe I wrote JavaScript for automations. Maybe I've done PowerShell scripts for network administration. The point is I write code, but I'm not really a programmer. I know enough about it. I mean, I could, but there's a big difference between one versus the other, right? And so you can use these tools to become a better developer or go down that path, but there's also the other programmer, the programmer that is the hardcore traditionalist one, and they've got the hair on the back of their neck standing up right now because there's a lot of resistance for them because two things. A, there's either a fear component that they think they're going to lose their job, which is not the case if they understand how this works. As a matter of fact, they can probably become a better programmer and do a lot more and not have to do the stuff they hate, because there's nothing more mundane than creating APIs and backends because it's repetitive, monotonous work. It's just, anyway, if you're
that's why Vibe programming exists, right? That's why the word programming is in the name. It is about being able to do more with less. It is not do more with nobody. That's currently not really possible. There are people out there, and maybe one day we'll do an overview of them, but that you basically just say, hey, write me an app that does this, and it will build you an app. Now, how you maintain that, how you be able to augment it, change it, how you do security testing on it, all of those things are still very much in the air. Those platforms are really good for getting some code out right away. But most of our clients, they have things such as safety and security that are paramount, not to mention scale. Uh, those three S words are a significant problem with those tools right now. At least that's been my experience. But hopefully that's going to change. And, everybody will become a programmer of complex technology. But I really see vibe programming is that mature middle ground where as things get added, you'll be able to continue your normal programming processes at a much higher rate, much greater productivity. And then the developer, who is very attuned to using IDs like this, will be able to consume this technology rapidly. And that is really, and I've harped on this a lot, so my apology to everybody for you hearing me on my soapbox again. It doesn't matter how great the technology is if nobody uses it.
Yep. No, well said for sure. And that is pretty much the nail in the coffin for a lot of folks is they don't really appreciate that. And if they're not using it because of fear, then they're missing out on something absolutely tremendous. Especially the people that, I'll just say it, that they have maybe 15 plus years of programming experience. They're very tied in the traditional way of doing it, but they also appreciate the fact of being able to assign the grunt crap work that they don't want to do to the junior developer, to the middle developer. Now, it depends on the team, depends on the vibe, the culture. Sometimes the senior programmer is such an elitist. They're like, well, if I give it to them, then I just have to go and redo everything that they did anyway, because whatever. But that's not the developers that are junior and mid. That's a problem within the team, right? That's because they don't have standards, or the guy that's the senior doesn't want to share the knowledge, and he's got all of that information stuck in his head. And this levels out your development team. So if you have a culture problem, a challenge with people hoarding information, not sharing techniques or programming, AI is going to level set everything, and everybody is going to come up to speed much quicker, much faster. So to that, I'm going to digress and show the settings one more time. There's another setting in here besides model. These are called rules. I made joke of the guy or girl that has something stuck in their head where they are afraid of losing their job and they hold all the knowledge. Well, that's a negative thing, but let's just say that you have somebody that's the complete opposite. They like to share information. They like to teach others. They like to mentor them, bring them up. Or you have a company with a great culture and you have a rules, a style book, a developer run book, or departmental development run book. These are things that are saying we only use these libraries. When we do certain coding or even marking up or commenting of code, we do it in this fashion. Maybe there's another record of whatever. But the point is, whatever those rules are, if you put them in here, in addition to what you're seeing me do here with setting up these instructions, all of this together combined ensures a great high quality output rather than getting a 40-60, 60-80, 80-20, whatever split of whatever's coming down the pipe. You'll get much higher, closer to 100%. Right the first time because you did the preparation work up front. I haven't written one line of code. AI hasn't written one line of code. All it's done is written instructions, but we're doing the preparation so we can see what's happening. Now we're pretty much running out of time, so I'm going to fast track this. I've already seen some issues while Sean was talking. And so I want to create a real world API. I don't want this to say webhook, because this is a real world API. Webhooks are for N8N, and that's what they call it, an N8N. But I'm building a real API endpoint, and that's not normal. They usually don't have it. It's usually V1, V2, whatever, and then whatever the method is that it's doing. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean up that. And the other thing that I saw, it was building out a test case for this. And here's the webhooks again. I got to get rid of those. I could have asked AI to go through and clean it. That way I'm not having to fish through it, but at least it's small enough to where I think this will work. There's a README over here. Okay, so here it's talking about endpoints. Here's the webhook again. Matter of fact, I may do that because I bet it's going to blow up because I'm seeing this webhook thing everywhere. But I do see this right here. It's giving an ID. Remember, I told you we already had IDs. You saw that conflict earlier. I'm going to do this ID at 4,000 so that we don't run into an error with that when it tries to test because it's got some ID constraint. All of this is looking good. But the point is, you're seeing what I'm doing. I can see what it's going to do, and I can head off the errors in advance because I'm still in the planning phase. And you saw me, I went from this crazy prompt to the other prompt to now the instructions, and I haven't written one line of code. So the emphasis here is on planning, on documentation, on making sure you have it set up for success. I am going to go through and I'm going to say, can't even read my own writing here. All right. Okay. Yep. And so that looks good. And it's going through. It's going to hopefully pick up and correct anything it did. It found one instance there. It's looking at that. It's trying to change it back, or it noticed a variance. Then let's update the planning. Okay. That looks good there. So it's going through and it's doing all of the final tests and check. And it went through and it's seeing that's all there. Okay, so I haven't accepted any of the files. I've edited it. It's gone through. It's done its check. I personally am going to go and do my diligence and make sure that this look. I'm going to get rid of the prompt. I don't need that one here. We'll look at this one. It has reverted. So let's put that back. Okay, so accept file. Next, accept. Next, accept. Okay, so all my planning documents are done. And those are the setting features. All right, here's the last and final part that I want to share as far as tools and tips. And then from here on out, we'll just probably have to close down the podcast. We can pick this up in a future podcast or reach out to us if you want to see a personalized one-on-one demo. But the thing here is that I'm done with the planning phase. Now I want to get ready to build it. Now, when you're having a conversation with AI, going back to the context window, this is where context windows and context will bite you. You need to make sure that when you're vibe programming, and this applies no other place better than vibe programming, you want to have a unique, distinct conversational thread. And when I say thread, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to clear this thing and I'm going to say, or actually I'm going to do post. I'll keep the past chats are down here, but I'm creating a new chat because I'm going to do a new task. I'm doing something different. Now I can go back within the context window of that task, and I can work within it and not have to bring all that back up again and re-educate it because it's there. But each task, I'm going to go down a different path. So I create a brand new one. So at this point, I'm going to say, I'm going to add the README file, the planning, and the doc. Now you see I'm just adding ticks here, and I'm going to do one more folder. I want to bring in this JSON. And so all of these, I've mentioned these files, and I'm going to say, let's build this app. That's it. And so we're starting with a fresh context window. Now it needs to ask me permission, which is a good thing. You can override this. Please don't do that. It's a security nightmare. Your company will hate you for it, especially if you're allowed to do it. But you can change this prompt so that you don't get prompt for it to run rogue code. You want to make sure what it's running is safe. So it is safe. It doesn't like it. It's looking at something else. It's going to go ahead and fix that. It says, I apologize. Run the command. Okay. Did it run? It's generating. Okay, there it goes. All right, now it's creating my requirements document. And so for those of you that know code, this is where you'll run pip install for Python, and it will tell you what libraries to use. So it's going to use SQL Alchemy. This allows you to connect to SQL Server. Fast API is a library that makes you create or gives you to create APIs. If you know Python, there's other libraries that you could have used, but I used API or Fast API as I specified it. If I didn't specify it, it could pick from any capable library. And you don't want to have that. So this is where I was talking about your company or corporate standards. So it's going through, it's ripping through. Right now it wants to create an environment. So that's fine. Let's let it create the environment, which is a good thing. This means all of the requirements that are here are going to run within the confines of that environment. And see, it's running through that right now. So it's doing that inside of the environment. And the reason you use environments is because Python, like Node.js, it's finicky. All these different libraries is a nightmare when you have to align them all up and make sure that there's compatibility. And so if you don't have environments, you get collisions and crashes. And this is where the developer says, well, it works on my machine. And so, this is part of the problems that you have. All right. So look, it's done a bunch of stuff. It's written the code. It tells me that it's ready to go. It's run through the pip. It's installed the basic structure. Now it's telling me to run the server. But before I run the server, I'm going to go through and I'm going to accept the file. We'll go next, accept this file, next. That looks okay there. That might be accept. We'll just let it go and do its thing. Okay, so look, I thought I had everything. All right, we'll close these down. I don't need those anymore. Okay, so that's all being done. Let's run this server and let's see if we get an error. And so right now we do have an error. Now what we can do is we can come right over here to this. Okay. So you might be inclined to just ask this. There was an error running the terminal. Can you see the terminal? It says, I don't see the error in the output. So in that case, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and grab all of this, copy it, and we're going to paste it into the window. And notice the context window is still there. And I'm still within the same conversational context. And so I'm going to say, here's the error. And I thought I was pasting in the error. Apparently it's not on my clipboard. Let's do this one more time.
And while he's working on that, I mean, again, I know this is very messy, but that's part of this. Vibe programming is supposed to allow you to just get into rhythm of doing large things very quickly. And this is what it means to be in the vibe. You're constantly going through and it's creating the code. You're checking the code. You're correcting it. You're following up. You're testing it, and then this iteration so that you can build an application in 10% of the effort that you did earlier. And this is really the goal. Now, as you're seeing, maybe this is not exactly the practice, right? Because we run into errors. It's trying to figure it out. And, as any good developer will tell you, a significant part of creating any application is banging your heads against the wall. As you're seeing here, you are banging your head against the wall with AI. And so, is this going to make you more efficient? Yes. Is it going to solve all your problems? No. No. I mean, AIs can get into a blind alley just like a human can.
Yep.
So, again, I think this is a good place to stop, David, if you wanted to, because the goal here is not to let's build something and show you it done. The goal is to show you the process by which to get started, and that this technology is not perfect. It does not replace developers. And that was really the goal for me on this podcast, is talk about the technology and explain how it is an enabler. It is not the coup de grace on digital engineering.
Well, looks like there's some issues with the connectivity to SQL Server. So I'll have to go through the code and figure out what SQL Server username it used. I just literally vibed my way through it, but I can see here from the error that it's complaining about the name pipe, but whatever. It's trying to use a wrong connection into the SQL Server. So I know how to fix this, but I'm not going to rely on AI at this point. I'm going in circles. I've tried about 3 or 4 times. And so at this point, this is where the experience of the developer is going to come into place, because AI just doesn't know how to solve this problem. I could probably stick to it another hour if I wanted to go in circles, or I can just spend the next 5 minutes going right to the file, right to the area, testing it and fixing it right there in code and be done with it very, very quickly. So in any event, we are about 4 minutes to the end of the show. So as Sean said, we're unfortunately going to have to stop here, but
I think it's not unfortunate, David, because this is the experience of vibe programming today. And many people would show negatively on this. But no, what you did is you built 98% of an application in 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Exactly.
And it shows the gap. When we talk about 95, 85% accuracy, I think you just proved it.
No, and that's true. And this is what I was going to say too, is that we've got all of this code that has been, well, that's a stale code, but we've got all of that code that was written, all of this there. And I'm pretty sure that all of that code is going to work, assuming the connectivity issues are resolved. The problem isn't necessarily the code. We're having a problem with the connectivity to SQL Server, which is a completely different issue. It's still, an issue. But as a developer, especially junior developers, when they're just coming on, they run into the same problem. But they get stuck for maybe 2-3 days trying to figure this out before they finally have enough courage to go with their tails between their legs and ask their senior or mid developer, I can't connect to SQL Server. Will you help me? And so they might get chastised and say, well, next time you get into a blocker, we're here to help you. Make sure you come and do whatever. But the point is, whether it's humans or AI, everybody is going to run into a challenge one time. But look at what we were able to do. And I was able to do things like this earlier. The reason that I'm having the problem is because at the last minute, I created a unique server login ID for this, because I didn't want to put my actual real password in the code for everybody to see. So I think when I did that, it just threw a monkey wrench into the whole thing. But in any event, that is pretty much it for today's show. Sean, you want to go ahead and give us a closeout?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you're quite tired and taking us through this today, David, but great job showing everybody this is what people are doing now. This is what vibe programming is. This is what no-code, low-code platforms do. And it is up to you as transformation leaders to adopt one method or another. But you will be judged on the other technologies as well. So it's important for everybody to choose, but as they said in that old Indiana Jones movie, but choose wisely. And I say we wrap it up for the day. We'll see you next week. Thanks everybody for watching and all your comments today. I hope we get to them online. Hit us up on LinkedIn. Really appreciate your time and attention.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.